The injury bug seems to bite Alabama about this time every year. There's a lot of rites of passage into the fall. The leaves start changing. People are leaving the beach, and Alabama gets an injury on the football team. So who was it this time, and how's Alabama going to deal with it? Here we go.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
I'm just fine. I'm better than JoJo's Jones break. What is that? Did Julio beat up JoJo Earle?
It makes some sense. If Barrett Jones, Christian Jones, and Julio Jones all got in a scrap, JoJo Earle seems like the guy who'd get hurt.
True. They stepped on his foot.
But man, I mean, come on. What are the odds? You know, here we are with this receiving core that we're excited about. Don't get me wrong, but it's really unproven. I mean, Jermaine Burton comes in, and we're all excited for him. I saw a mock draft today that had him going in the first round, and that's great. We're excited for Tyler Harrell, but he's been sort of like there's something going on there, and I'll let you explain that a little bit later, at least theorize, because I don't think you know what's happening. But it seems like he hadn't splashed onto the scene like a lot of people had hoped. And now everybody's like, okay, well, even if Tyler Harrell doesn't, turn out to be the second coming of Jameson Williams, then there's always JoJo Earle right there, and he'll step up. And lo and behold, he ain't going to be doing any stepping for a while because he's got a Jones break in his foot, whatever that is.
Yeah, that sounds like something. That sounds like something a made-up doctor, like on The Simpsons. They had that made-up doctor sucked real bad, and they go to him and they say, "Hey, what's wrong with my foot?" And he's like scratching his head, going, "I think it's a Jones fracture." It's just totally made up. But here's the thing. Now, first of all, because I saw someone comment on Twitter before we started recording the show about how sort of implying that this only happens to Alabama. That's silly. Particularly on a day when I don't know what's wrong with them. Obviously has a significant medical issue, but Wake Forest quarterback Sam Hartman looks like he won't be playing football this season. He's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football, a big part of the college football story in 2022, frankly. And he's out for what sounds like potentially something serious. This is football just being football. However, there is some bad luck here, and this is what it is. I think had JoJo been lost for eight weeks or so, the first thing that would have come to my mind, particularly with us starting season 3, of the first 4 games are against Utah State, Louisiana Monroe, and Vanderbilt. It's not exactly murderer's row. You can get away with playing young guys. So under normal circumstances, I'd be telling people, watch out, here comes Aaron Anderson. Aaron Anderson is who is going to benefit from this, and we're going to see true freshman Aaron Anderson, maybe even in a punt return role, and that would be sort of exciting, right? But Aaron Anderson is also hurt, and that's where the Alabama luck lately, Luke, it seems like if we do have literal bad luck, some voodoo going on, it's that our injuries in recent years tend to be bunched up at one spot. Yeah, you lose 4 guys. Well, losing 4 guys is no big deal. You have 85. You should be able to easily handle losing 4 guys. Yeah, but Alabama will lose like 4 inside linebackers or 4 outside linebackers, and now 2 slot receivers. I mean, they're not just receivers, they're slot guys specifically. JoJo, young player, only played in the slot last season. Aaron Anderson only learned the slot spot this spring. Now he's out. So we'll talk about the other replacement, and I think it'll be Christian Leary. We're going to talk about that shortly. But if there is some bad luck, if there is some voodoo, why does Alabama lose guys at the same position? That's the bad luck part.
Hey, Jimmy, and you're spot on here. Now, look, I'm not going to try to remember every single preseason injury we've had, but they've been pretty numerous. And I specifically remember 2019, we lost 2 linebackers, one of which was Dylan Moses. And you're telling me that if Dylan Moses wouldn't have made 9 points worth of difference to beat Auburn and LSU that year.
Right.
And there's no doubt in my mind he would have. We win one of those games, probably the Auburn game if we have him, but instead we don't have him. Shoot, you can go back to 2013. Do you remember Vinny Sunseri's hurt? That's the reason he's not out there holding for the field goal, which the ill-fated field goal attempt. And if Vinny Sunseri's out there, at least he has a better shot to make a tackle on Chris Davis.
I remember telling Texas fans, who if we only had Colt McCoy, this is in 2009. And I remember for a while, my smart aleck, because I can't say the other word anymore, my smart aleck response in 2009, when Texas fans would say, yeah, if we only had Colt McCoy, I was saying, yeah, if we only had Dante Hightower, who we won the national championship, played the whole season without Hightower, who was unbelievable, real good player. And could have been, but yeah. So Alabama, it seems, has annual issues with injuries. I remember the brief talk about when we hired Dr. Ray and David Ballou that all that was over. That's just, do people watch football? I mean, you're gonna lose guys, no matter what your strength conditioning process is, and that's okay. Now here's all good news to me, Luke. And that's that. JoJo's going to be back in approximately 8 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks of that will be literally just missing practice. Then the games start, and you play Utah State, and you play Texas, and you play Monroe, and you play Vandy. It is conceivable, looking at the calendar, that JoJo is back for October 1st, and you only miss those 4 games. Look, we're not going to lose to 3 of those 4 opponents because we don't have our starting slot receiver and punt returner. I do agree that the Texas game on the road is a little hairy, but for about 3 reasons. Number one, we didn't play well on the road last year at all. Number two, it's really the punt return job. I think it's going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry returning punts. I believe that. Today I do. I mean, we'll see. My mind could change, but today I believe it'll be Kool-Aid. And I'll be nervous about Kool-Aid fielding punts. All I want him to do is fair catch it, on the road. Those screaming fans. Texas has good athletes. I mean, just fair catch the ball and let's get on the bus and go home. But yeah, the Texas game will be a little hairy with Kool-Aid returning punts. I do think we will be fine for those 4 games with a backup slot receiver, and then I guess we might do a break or something. But heck, let's talk about Christian Leary for a few minutes. That's who's going to benefit. That's who I think might slide into the starting lineup. And let me tell you, I'm a Leary fan. Once he gets on the field, it might be tough to take him off it.
Yeah, I want to talk about Christian Leary. And, one final note about Kool-Aid returning punts. The thing about Kool-Aid being the backup punt returner, I feel like that's what I want him to be, the backup punt returner. So now that we have time between now and several games, I want somebody else to take that first position. What I'm saying is, see, if JoJo Earle had gotten hurt against Texas, cool, put Kool-Aid back there, because he's smarter, more experienced. He will make the better play theoretically. But if we have time to train somebody to be a punt returner, and God knows we got people that can return punts. We got a bunch of them. I mean, Isaiah Bond. I mean, somebody. And I know you're smirking, but I'm saying
I'm not smirking at all. I'm if I had a facial reaction, it's just maybe it's just because obviously people know me. I didn't really play football. Returning punts is got to be one of the most difficult things. It's got to be.
Agreed. But what my point is that I don't want my starting cornerback doing it full time. So right. I would have him do it in a pinch, because I think if JoJo Earle gets hurt early in the Texas game, yeah, put Kool-Aid back there. Don't put somebody else back there that's not been doing much. Put a guy that has some experience. But we have time to get somebody else ready, and therefore I don't want my starting cornerback doing that. But now what I'm going to do now is tell everybody about what I'm going to tell you about. I'm going to tell you about Built Bar, because they're awesome. I had one for lunch today. That's all I ate for lunch today. Very proud of myself. And, I felt full. I didn't need anything else. If you haven't tried the Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of the greatest joys in life. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? It's delicious, indulgent cookie dough. Go check it out. Covered in chocolate. That's right. Built Bar has done it again, folks. Let me introduce you to the new favorite, cookie dough chunk puffs. Never thought I'd say those 4 words together in a row like that, but I just did it. Have a light and chewy texture on this thing. It's awesome. Real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making the cookie dough, and it's just tastes delicious. Go try it. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and have a whopping 15 grams of protein. That's unbelievable. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off that order. That's built.com, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off that order, with LOCK15 being your promo code at built.com. All right, so we mentioned some potential other players that could get time now that JoJo's out. Christian Leary does certainly come to mind. And as a matter of fact, one of our comments in the YouTube, the last podcast we did, a guy waxed poetic literally about Christian Leary. He was like, look, I don't know why everybody's really worried about Tyler Harrell. Christian Leary's got this thing covered. And look, I love Christian Leary because he showed us he can come out of the backfield. Now, I don't even, did he have any carries, like straight handoff carries last year? Do you remember?
If he did, Luke, I don't remember. I'm going to say he did, but it would have been 2 or 3 and definitely a garbage time situation. Yeah. I mean, his play of the year last year that immediately comes to mind was the touchdown Arkansas. But and the thing that's impressive about that, Luke, is he actually wasn't lined up in the backfield on that play. He was lined up as a normal receiver. And obviously it was an ad lib thing on Bryce's part. I don't think it was designed the whole time to go to Leary. But there he is in the first half against an SEC opponent playing with the first team, and he's a true freshman. I think we somehow have not overlooked, but we didn't talk up Leary enough in terms of, hey, he was actually on the field with the first team some a year ago, and that's not an easy thing to do as a true freshman. Then on A-Day, we all know what he did on A-Day. He had over 100 yards receiving. He was sort of one of the stars of the day. But I bring up this all the time, partly because I do like ripping on Ajay Hall a little bit. Frankly, I like doing that. When Ajay had his 100-yard A-Day 2 A-Days ago, he racked up those numbers because he beat freshmen, he beat walk-ons, he beat backup players. He beat threes. It wasn't even beaten on twos. He was catching balls over the heads of players he was clearly more athletic than, but it wasn't the first team he was beating. It wasn't even the second team guys, really. Well, fast forward, Leary had his 100 yards. Yeah, he was going up against the twos, but the specific 2 he was going up against was Malachi Moore. I mean, that's who all of Leary's plays that he made on A-Day were at the expense of Malachi. And while it's fair if you say, well, Malachi, in all honesty, probably isn't an elite SEC defensive back. Okay, true. But name the SEC defensive backfields Malachi Moore would not be a part of. I mean, Malachi would be playing for anyone in the SEC, probably even Georgia, in terms of whether it's nickel or dime. So I'm just saying Leary racked up his numbers against legit competition. And I think a lot of the momentum that built for Ajay Hall was a little bit of fool's gold, to be honest. And we said so at the time. We were one of the few that were saying so. We weren't saying, hey, Ajay's going to fall flat on his face. Everybody doesn't know what they're talking about. But we bought it up here that it's not about whether you can catch the ball. It's who are you beating, and that's what people need to pay attention to. We got scrimmages coming up, right? And we're going to read about plays that are made and read about things that happen, but keep it in the proper context. Your first question, if you hear that a freshman receiver made a big play, it's fine to be excited about that, but your first question needs to be, who did they beat? Who did they beat? If they just beat another freshman, that means something. But if they beat Kool-Aid or they beat Jordan Battle, that's something totally different, right?
Well, yeah, and in hindsight, now that you bring that up, the worst thing that could have ever happened to Ajay Hall is he had a great spring game. I mean, because that didn't do anything to deflate an already puffy ego. Again, I have no problem with him. I hope he succeeds in Texas. I hope he does well in every game except us, of course. I mean, I'm pulling for Ajay Hall. Again, we show that we can pull for guys that leave Alabama. We pull for Alvin Kamara. We pull for Jalen Hurts. And I know Ajay Hall isn't the same kind of cat as some of those guys, but that's okay. I'm pulling for Ajay Hall, but he needed a reality check with us. And boy, I know he doesn't play the same position, right? But wouldn't it be great to have Ajay Hall on the field this year if his head were completely on straight and things were worked out? I mean, that would be awesome. I mean, I'd love to have him. Because here's another thing, Jimmy. Here's another thing, that the JoJo Earle injury is bad enough by itself, and it's not catastrophic. I mean, he's not out for the year. This is not Dylan Moses. Okay. But Cameron Latu's banged up. So now you've got two of let's say two of Bryce Young's 5 top targets are going to miss a few games. I mean, fair enough, right?
I don't think we know enough about Latu's injury. I'm hearing, I know nothing that leads me to believe Latu won't be playing against Utah State. I mean, I'm not telling you guys he is. I don't know that. I mean, I literally do not know. But what I also don't know is that he's missing games. I think Latu could be back before Utah State, but Luke makes a great point, because you still have to practice. You can't just step out on the field of competition not having fully practiced and think things will be fine. So, I insist, I'm like one of the only people in the wilderness that says this, but I think an issue with our offensive line last fall was that we didn't practice with those 5 guys as the starters until the week of the Miami game. It was game week, and then we put five guys in a different lineup than we had used before. And it's like, we didn't line up with those specific 5 guys in those specific 5 spots. Not during the spring, not during fall camp, but it just fell a certain way to where, okay, Monday before Miami, these are the 5 we're going with. I'm not a huge fan of it, and I think it wasn't the cause of the line struggling all season, but I don't think it helped. And I say that as a way to say, hey, even Latu missing these practices isn't particularly helpful.
All right, Jimmy, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to turn our attention to something a little more encouraging. That is recruiting. All right, Jimmy, Miles McVay will be committing. Let's go ahead and call it today, even though it's really tomorrow. I mean, because it's like 7:36 here on a Wednesday night, and that's usually my bedtime. But regardless, Miles McVay from East St. Louis will be committing. And, I just caught a little bit of the full ride, that show with Chris Childers and Rick Neuheisel. And by the way, I appreciate the show because they talk so much about college football, and it's like year-round talking college football. I dig that. I don't appreciate the fact that they constantly talk about SEC essentially ruining the health of college football. When I look around and go, college football seems pretty doggone healthy. We're Alabama fans. People are going to say, of course you feel like it's healthy. You're an Alabama fan. I'm also saying, what do you want to do? You want to punish the teams that are doing really well because they're doing really well? I mean, nobody punished Miami and Florida State in the 80s and the 90s. You know what I mean? Or Nebraska. When they were on a run, Nebraska could have easily won 4 in a row or 5 in a row. And I'm just saying it irks me that everybody's like, oh, now, the SEC's doing so well. Well, you know what? If the SEC wasn't doing well, you know what you'd do? You'd say they got to start firing coaches and get better and do all. SEC found a formula that works and they're using it. But that's a rant for another day. Regardless, I heard them on the full ride talking about Missouri. They had a Missouri preview or whatever. And they said, couple other folks that are from Missouri, Jamison Williams. And then I thought Ezekiel Elliott was from Missouri, wasn't he?
I think that sounds right to me.
I mean,
yeah, St. Louis. Mm-hmm.
But regardless, they were talking about how Missouri could be better if they just kept people at home. But they're not going to keep this guy at home either, Miles McVay. It sounds like he's going to go to Alabama, some more offensive line help. And so that's going to be huge. Let's go ahead and just talk about what Miles McVay means for Alabama, because we are kind of assuming at this point Miles McVay will commit to Alabama.
That's our projection at Bama Insider. Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings have both projected Miles McVay to sign with Alabama. Don't ever disagree with them. That's a good place to start. Miles is huge. I mean, that's one thing about it. He's big. He's not Jaheim Otis big, but he's in the neighborhood. He's going to be on the Otis plan in terms that this is a kid that needs to lose some bad weight and then get things really regulated. And if he does, he can be something else, because even at this excessive weight, shows a lot of athleticism. He plays hard. He plays with a ton of power. He's got the length of a tackle, long arms, and he's a guy that could probably get away with playing tackle. But I think at Alabama, he'll be a guard, which will be fun, because I think I'm talking about a ceiling here. I'm not comparing him to Deontay Brown, but a couple of things. He's actually more highly rated than Deontay Brown, actually more highly regarded, and is a longer, more built for Sundays type guy. I hope that Alabama is able to morph him into a Deontay Brown in his time at Alabama. I think that's a realistic path for him.
I think everybody would love it if he went the Deontay Brown, the cornbread route. That would be awesome. And how ironic, or actually it's not ironic, it's more fitting that if you're compared to a guy named Cornbread, you might need to lose a little weight. that sounds about right. But Miles McVay, we hope he'll be committing to Alabama at 11:30. And then we're going to talk some more as the podcast progresses this week. Is it Paludio? Is that Raymond Paludio?
Polito.
Well, it looks like it's okay. All right. I try my best with these names. You know better than I.
Get them right every time. And my problem is when I get them wrong, when I learn how to say it, like I said Olas Alanine's name wrong for so long. I'm not saying it right now, even though I know how to say it now. Once I get it wrong, I'm going to get it wrong for a while. But no, it's Raymond Polito.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about him later in the week. Wanted to mention a few other things. First of all, Alabama basketball. I think McVay commits at 11:30, and Alabama basketball tips off at 11:30 tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
He what now?
I think McVay commits at 6 p.m. Central.
Okay. Why did I have 11:30? Maybe I had 11:30 because of the basketball. Okay. Alabama plays basketball at 11:30 tomorrow. I do know that.
Wasn't today.
No, it's tomorrow.
That's why I'm worried I missed it. Okay. So it's tomorrow and Friday.
Thursday. I mean, again, I'm not sure when you're watching this, but one other thing I wanted to tell a couple of folks. How about everybody that's listening? There's a lot more than a couple.
Not just two people.
It used to be just two people, you and me.
Me and you.
But anyway, so we had Bob Kessling, the voice of the Tennessee Volunteers, on our show last night, Sports Blitz. And he's super. I'll tell you, Bob Kessling's, I like him a lot. He's just a dude. Anyway, so we had Bob Kessling on, and super guy. He's been on our show several times. And usually, I mean, it's kind of a running joke. Like usually when he comes on, he's like, yeah, going to be a tough year, boys. But this year he had some more excitement or whatever. Well, I gave him a couple of opportunities to try and pronounce Tennessee's quarterback commitment's name that's so popular, the $8 million man, Nico. And I've been saying I am Aliva. There's no way that's right, but that's what I'm going with. And
right. I think it's right. I do think it's right. That's what I've been saying. I'm Aliva.
I think it's wrong.
Oh, wow. Oh, really?
I think Joseph Hastings knows what it is, so we should have him on and ask him again. But anyway, I just found it interesting. Like he avoided that last name like the plague last night. And I just thought that was funny. Then I'm going to tell you one other personal story just very quickly because I think it's hilarious. Those who know me, you can, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever. I've got a 5-year-old daughter that is hilarious. And she's just full of personality. She is the opposite of me in a lot of ways and exactly like me and most others. And it's one of those ways where she has a great sense of humor, but she stays up. She can stay up forever. She can just stay up all night. She loves a crowd, loves all that stuff. Well, we went to a Catholic wedding last Saturday. And, the thing about a Catholic wedding, sometimes they can lay the guilt on you pretty good. In fact, we were told by the priest, now everybody in this congregation, if y'all aren't willing to help this couple get to heaven, that's on y'all. You might as well leave right now. And I was thinking, I better go because I don't really know them. I'm here for my wife. And also this is the first time I've been to church in 5 years. So counting weddings. So I don't know that I can do much. Well, so this wedding was lasting a long time, right? And there's it's a beautiful church, these old wooden pews. And really, I'm 50 or about to be 50. So all I could think was, I just hope I don't like a moment of gas doesn't strike me. Because I was like, if that happens everybody in the church is going to look at me. You know how like I'm one of those people that I'm self-deprecate. I always remember like the terrible things I did as a kid or whatever, and like every time I think something good's going to happen, your brain's like, no, remember that time you made a D plus on a test you really needed to make an A on, or like, oh man. So all I could think about was, man, I just hope that I don't have like a stomach issue right now. And I looked around and it felt like everybody else was thinking the same thing because there were looks on these people's faces like they were having gas pangs. Well, about that time, if I'm lying, I'm dying. My 5-year-old daughter cuts one in the church on the wooden pew. And it's not super loud. She's only 5, but it's loud enough where like people turned around and we were like, whoa. You know what she did? Where I was thinking what I would have to do if that happened to me, and I'd be like, excuse me, y'all, I've got to go find a tall building to jump off of because I can't survive. I can't survive this. I will never live this down and I don't want to go on. She looked at me and her mom and did this, Jimmy. She went finger guns. She went, and I was like, that girl's owning the moment. I was like, that is crazy. But anyway, I'm glad I have raised so far a very confident child.
Can't believe you cut one in church and blamed it on your 5-year-old. Right. Second time. Now you've gone to a new audience to blame it on. It's bad enough you blamed it on her, and then she saved you. She saved you with the finger gun.
Finger gun saved me.
And now you've come to a whole new audience to say, no, really, it was my 5-year-old. It wasn't me.
But what I love is she even did the. I was like, who does the click of the gun anymore? I mean, it was anyway. I had to tell that story. I'm sorry. I know it's not Bama related, but y'all know how it is when you got a 5-year-old. Sometimes you guys just tell the stories. Anywho, Jimmy, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We will be back tomorrow where we will start talking about some of these other guys committing. Hey, 2 big commitments on Saturday, Palidio as well as Kelby Collins. And that thing is going back and forth like a tennis match. So we'll be talking about that some more tomorrow. And until then, everybody, roll tide.
Roll Tide.